Hey everybody, it's Dr. Will Cole. We're live here in Los Angeles, California at Moon Juice, talking about all good things, healthy and functional medicine. We're going to talk about adaptogens, I'm sure, today. And really, I'm excited to answer your questions. And for those of you who do not know who I am, I'm Dr. Will Cole. Like I said, my doctorate is from Southern California, University of Health Sciences in Los Angeles, and my postdoctorate education and training is in functional medicine and clinical nutrition through the Institute for Functional Medicine, which we're here with IFM this weekend at their annual international conference, and in clinical nutrition through Functional Medicine University as well. And we see patients around the world via webcam and phone consultations at drwillcole.com. I'm one of mindbodygreen.com's, one of the biggest and best health websites in the world. I'm one of their course instructors and wellness experts. So I get to talk to people around the world, like we're doing right now, about functional medicine. And how I came into functional medicine was really an organic process, no pun intended there. But I heard of a guy called Datis Karazian who went to the same school that I did. It was an integrative medical alternative school. And he was doing amazing things with this thing called functional medicine. That was 10 years ago. And I've never looked back since. And really seeing what functional medicine can do for people that are looking for answers, they're tired of doing the same thing repeatedly and not getting anywhere. And they realize they need to do something different to see different results. So yeah, I'm excited to talk with you guys today.
Awesome, thank you, Dr. Cole. We're excited to have you. Real quickly, do you mind explaining to our viewers what functional medicine is?
Yeah, for those of you who do not know what functional medicine is, another word for functional medicine is integrative medicine or systems medicine. So we're looking at the systems of the body that are interplaying, interconnected, that when they're working properly, they give rise to you feeling great and your health being great. And when they're not working well, they give rise to chronic and autoimmune problems. So the big differences between functional medicine and mainstream medicine: number one, we interpret labs, the ones that you have currently from your PCP or your endocrinologist or rheumatologist or gastroenterologist, all these specialists. We interpret those labs using a thinner reference range. So you guys know in your labs you get this X to Y reference range, and outside of that range is high or low. It's a bold font, you know you have a problem. Well, we get that reference range from a statistical bell curve average of the people who go to that specific lab location. And you'll see the reference ranges will vary from lab to lab based on the people who go to that lab. Who are people that typically go to the labs? They're people with health problems. There's a lot of us to go to the doctor to say, hey, why do I have these health issues? And all these labs come back normal, even though you know instinctively how you're feeling isn't normal for you. You're told you're just depressed, here's an antidepressant, or you're referred to another specialist with more just to get more labs that are showing up as normal, or you're told you're just getting older, or you just need to lose weight. All of the sort of well-intentioned excuses as to explain, but what they're really saying is you're a lot like the other sick people that make up the population of that lab. So we use a much thinner range within the larger reference range. If you take people with health problems out of that reference range, that's the functional range, where your body's functioning the best. And the other things we do differently in functional medicine is we run more comprehensive labs. Maybe some of the things we're going to talk about with you guys today to answer your questions, things like microbiome dysfunctions, toxicity issues, methylation impairments, genetic polymorphisms, food intolerances, hormonal imbalances, inflammatory issues. These are the things we look at. The reason why they're not looked at, largely speaking, in the mainstream model of care is because they don't change the medications. It's superfluous to that system, but it's actually really important to find out the root cause of why you're going through what you're going through. And then we realize we're all different. There's not a cookie cutter size, one size fits all approach to getting well. And what works for one person can flare the next person up, even good, healthy, natural things. So we look at the patient as a unique individual, and we use food as medicine, herbal botanical medicines, lifestyle changes, medications when needed, to really get a comprehensive, evidence-based view of what that patient's going through. So that's my long-winded answer of what functional medicine is.
I love it. And would you consider autism to be an autoimmune condition? And what do you think is the best way to treat it holistically using functional medicine?
Good question. So is autism an autoimmune condition? It really is, depends on who you ask, and there's definitely some difference of opinion here. But I would say when you look at this point, over 100 different autoimmune conditions and another 40 on top of that that have at least an autoimmune component, you have to consider autism, and the medical literature does reflect this, to see it somewhere on this autoimmune inflammation spectrum, looking at the gut-brain axis, looking at the methylation impairments, and its correlation with the autism spectrum as well. So yes, I would say at the very least it has an autoimmune component to it, but some researchers would say it is an autoimmune condition, and I think with time we'll see not only autism, but a lot of different health conditions having at least an autoimmune component to it.
Trisha wants to know if you think that functional medicine will ever be covered through insurance.
Yeah, that's a good question. So will functional medicine be covered by insurance? Well, we are making strides in that. And there's definitely, even with our clinic, when we see patients around the world, there are parts of functional medicine, like labs, that are offset through insurance. And all of our patients are working class people. They're working moms and working dads and single moms. We do everything we can to make sure functional medicine is affordable for people, and not just in our model, but the Cleveland Clinic has a functional medicine center. There are many different private practices and different group classes. Parsley Health is doing an amazing thing. Robin Burrs, a friend of mine, doing a great thing as far as monthly a subscription-based functional medicine. So will it be covered by insurance? That was the question that you had. Parts of it, maybe. I think with time, more and more. Labs are covered to a large degree at this point, not all of them, but some of them. And I would say this, health savings accounts and flex spending accounts, FSAs and HSAs, those do oftentimes offset the cost of it as well. As a general rule, will the entirety of it be covered by insurance? Probably not. I don't think the system's set up for that sort of thinking at this point. I don't see that. That's a huge paradigm shift, but it's possible.
So you said lab tests are covered through insurance. We have a question from Carrie, who wrote, I was diagnosed with my 5th autoimmune condition last year, and I'm starting to feel a bit helpless and hopeless. How can I stop this cascade? Any tests or steps that you would recommend that I run?
I'm really sorry to hear about that. Yeah, autoimmune conditions are on the rise for sure, and your people with one are at increased risks, 50 to 70% for most of them, for other autoimmune inflammation spectrum issues. So that's a big question. I think getting in touch with a qualified functional medicine doctor, getting a comprehensive workup to really take your health back, and it's largely speaking not going to be had with autoimmunity in the mainstream model of care, which, as you know, they're going to give you steroids or a biologic like Humira or something like this. There's not much solution there for most people sustainably, and maybe symptom control in the short term, but long-term solutions, it's unsustainable. So looking at your gut, it's where 80% of your immune system is, getting a quality microbiome test to see what you're up against there, running good functional medicine labs. I'm sure we can leave links in here, but there's tons of lists of labs on my website at drrulecole.com where you can at least print those off and say, okay, go to your doctor and say, hey, I want to have these labs run. Because some of these labs your mainstream doctor can run. They may not run, they probably won't run them if you don't ask for it. But I think really educating yourself on what we can do in functional medicine, and even if you don't go to a functional medicine doctor, go to your mainstream doctor with information and say, hey, I'd like these labs ran, and then getting information about your health.
What are your thoughts on essential oils for autism?
I think those can be really good, really calming things like lemon balm and different calming ones. Lavender is fantastic. I like bergamot as well as far as calming and clarity. Yeah, I see it being effective in my practice for sure.
Okay, Lori says she has a son with autism. He's 4. He's seen great progress with treatment. She recently found out that she does have the double zygote MTHFR gene, but she currently has a very healthy lifestyle. She eats organic, grass-fed. She breastfeeds her 2-month-old. They don't eat gluten, they don't eat soy, they don't eat dairy. Recently her son started eating some casein, and he began stimming. They took it out of his diet. He improved. Her question is, are there any supplements or dietary items you think that she should consider, especially with her family's history of the MTHFR gene? Okay,
so we're talking about autism, we're talking about the MTHFR mutation. For those of you who do not know, MTHFR is the acronym. It's not an acronym for a swear word, guys. It is an acronym for the enzyme that converts folic acid into folate, methylfolate, which you need. It's a carbon hydrogen methyl group that helps with methylation, which you need for healthy brain function and gut function and detox pathways, and protects your DNA basically. Makes you super healthy. It happens a billion times every second. For that person that's asking that question, I would want to know how long they were eating that way, because sometimes you're doing great things and it just hasn't been long enough to really make the impact that you need to make. The gut can take up to 2 years to heal with these different autoimmune inflammation spectrum issues, especially people with methylation impairments. So sometimes it's just being persistent and maybe getting encouragement from a health coach or a functional medicine doctor to say, okay, you're on the right path, because the gut takes time to heal. I mean, we're talking about 2+ years for these different autoimmune inflammation spectrum issues. So if you're like a year in, a year and a half in, the light isn't fully there. You're not always seeing the light fully. With that said, what are some things you can do? Starting with food as medicine. You mentioned grass-fed. The most rich source for methylation groups, activated B vitamins, is going to be organ meats like liver and sweetbreads, which aren't sweet, or breads like pancreas and thymus. Organ meats. Most people aren't eating these, right? They have a kind of a bad connotation in our Western society, but they're the most bioavailable source of these activated B vitamins. So that is a superfood, and they're typically cheaper because no one wants them. So they're cheaper cut of meat, which is affordable for a lot of families. You can mix them up with like 1/3 organ meat and 2/3 grass-fed beef, like into hamburger patties, to hide them for the kids. That's one way to get them in. Green leafy vegetables like spinach, those have a lot of good B vitamins. Sulfur-rich vegetables like onions and garlic and asparagus and broccoli, those are with sulforaphane are really great from a methylation standpoint, and broccoli sprouts is like the highest amount of this L-sulforaphane. So there's some good food supports. From a supplement support, you're going to want to avoid folic acid in multivitamins or a B complex, and look for methylfolate, methylcobalamin, these methylated B vitamins.
Laura wants to know, what are a few great foods for autoimmune reactivity with the thyroid?
Great question. So autoimmune reactivity against the thyroid, the most common being Hashimoto's disease or thyroid autoimmunity. Some great foods to focus on would be avoiding supplemental iodine. A lot of times people are trying to do the well-intentioned good thing by taking these herbal supplement supports with supplemental iodine. I would, again, this is a debated topic in functional medicine, but I would say that I have seen clinically, and there's research to reflect this, that supplemental iodine can cause autoimmune flare-ups, thyroid storms with people with Hashimoto's disease. So I would look, but you still need iodine, right? So you're going to want to get sea vegetables like dulse and nori and kombu and arame and all these fun sea vegetables. You can put them in soups, you can flake them on salads. They're really rich with not only iodine, which you do need, but it's in a whole food form, which all the other cofactors. So that's definitely a good food to focus on. Going back to methylation, there's almost 100% overlap between MTHFR gene mutations and Hashimoto's disease, meaning almost 100% of people, you gotta love LA, almost 100% of people with Hashimoto's have MTHFR mutations. So you're going to want to support this methylation impairments for sure.
Melissa wants to know, how do you feel about SSRI drugs for 10-year-olds? Any supplement alternatives?
Yeah. So obviously, I don't know the case. You can't make a blanket statement on that. For some people, it gets them out of a really tough situation. So I don't want to make light of that. But from a sustainability standpoint, the research doesn't look great for sustainable outcomes, and they can have potential, not negative side effects. So from a general standpoint, I would say there's far least risky and more practical solutions for people of all ages, at least of all kids, most of all kids, to really look at these issues. So looking at the gut-brain component, depression, anxiety, these are, there's a whole field of research called the cytokine model of cognitive function, basically how inflammation impacts how your brain works. So looking at driving down neuroinflammation, things like turmeric and resveratrol and skullcap, things like adaptogens, to really look at the impact of these things that really don't have side effects how can they impact neuroinflammation, depression, and anxiety.
Crystal asks, if I know my family has a history of autoimmunity, what is the best way to stay proactive about our health?
Yeah, so if you have a family history of autoimmunity, you really have to protect your genome. I mean, for most autoimmune conditions, the autoimmune pie, 1/3 of it is genetics and 2/3 is epigenetics. So these are the lifestyle choices that you make. So the foods you're eating or you're not eating, your stress levels or lack of it, your exposure to toxins or lack of it, your sleep or lack of it, all of these epigenetic factors are constantly and dynamically instructing your genome, your DNA, how to be expressed. So the old thought of genes where it was like predestination and you were bound to get this. Someone can have the worst genetic predisposition. I have MTHFR double mutation, autoimmunity on both sides of my family. I don't have an autoimmune condition. I'm doing all that I can do to protect my genome. So it's really about not shaming any parent, not shaming any person whatsoever, but really saying, what can you do now to make the best with what you've got? You can't change your genetics, but you can do so much to really down-regulate bad genes and support healthy expression of good genes. So the things I just talked about, stress levels, minimizing toxins, looking at foods, looking at gut, looking at methylation, those are some good practical steps, not quick fix steps, but good practical steps for you to start integrating into your life.
Ella, at Ella Gracefa 16 on Twitter, asks, what's the one thing you like most about Generation Rescue?
What do I like most about Generation Rescue? They're giving hope to so many families, and they're really disseminating this information that's so important. So many of my friends, I have 2 young kids. So many of my friends that are going through these issues, they don't have this information out there in the public, and if it wasn't for a group of people like Generation Rescue that are making a huge impact of really giving parents tools and giving families tools, it's priceless for families. So what can you say? They're doing the Lord's work for sure.
Julie G asks, she says, my son just turned 15 and his anxiety and OCD has gone through the roof since he started puberty. What adaptogens do you think would be helpful?
Okay, so for anxiety, there's a lot of good adaptogens. I have some in my Moon Juice cup right now, but the one I love for anxiety, especially for kids, is holy basil. Even just the name of it's calming, right? But Tulsi or holy basil is really a good one, and you can get them a lot of different sources of it. Gaia makes a good holy basil. It's just a single herb, plain, no additives to it. But that's a nice calming one. But ashwagandha can be good as well. And then adaptogenic mushrooms can be really good as well, like chaga. So there's a lot of options there, but holy basil is probably my favorite for anxiety.
Jen asks, with trends popping up in the wellness community often, why do you believe the usage of adaptogens can be so effective, especially with little science behind them? What role can they play in treating an individual with autism?
Yeah, and I would say there is an ample amount of research for adaptogens, and I've written about it and referenced on PubMed the studies that have been done, but some of them are smaller scale studies, certainly, and more research should be done on them, of course. But I would see not only in the research this reflects, but also I see clinically, seeing thousands of patients over the years. I see this on an hourly basis, what these things, what these adaptogens can do in people's lives. Are they magic cure-alls? Absolutely not, but they are amazing tools when used properly to really bring about positive change from a hormonal balance standpoint, from a managing inflammation standpoint, and for some of them a neuroprotective standpoint, a brain standpoint, and an immune strengthener as well.
Any thoughts on medical cannabis?
I think it is something that needs to be talked about a lot, and there needs to be an open discussion about this. I have seen it do amazing things for people with autoimmune issues, people with Parkinson's, people with MS. They are only alive because of this. And I just heard a research recently, but that opioid overdose has decreased dramatically in states. I think it's 33%. Opioid overdose has decreased by 33% in states who have legalized cannabis. So this is a better alternative for people who need it, for sure.
And last question comes from Candace, and Candace wants to know, what do you see being the next breakthrough trend in functional medicine?
So the next best trend in functional medicine, I would say the things that we are doing in functional medicine right now with cognitive decline and neurological autoimmunity, things like dementia, things like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, pretty remarkable things that are being done. Dr. Brett Dezin, I believe he's in LA here. He's speaking. We're here with the Institute for Functional Medicine this weekend. He's talking about what he's doing with dementia, reversing dementia, something that he believes should be a rare case, not ubiquitous as it is today for elderly people. The things that my friend Terry Walls is doing with MS in Iowa is remarkable. And the things that functional medicine is doing with autism. So I would say the brain immune system component is really a breakthrough at this point. It's exciting stuff. We're at the forefront of this field of healthcare, of functional neurology and functional endocrinology and autoimmunity. And I would also say is telehealth. The fact that we can talk to people around the world like we're doing now via webcam consultations is really remarkable. We're able to get care for patients in cities and towns where they aren't able to get care. That is super next level as far as people are just getting aware of the fact that they have options. They don't just have to go to the PCP down the road when they're just going to get the same medications. So I think telehealth and telemedicine is another great aspect that we see growing in functional medicine.
What can we expect from your talk at the Autism Education Summit this year?
If you guys come, you guys need to come to Dallas this fall at the Autism Summit. It's going to be amazing, the Autism Education Summit. We're going to talk about adaptogens in detail and give you great practical tools for you to implement into your family's life, no matter what mood they're in, no matter what they need to be supporting. And we're going to be talking about methylation. We're going to get super science nerdy, guys, but we're going to be making it practical and usable for your family and not overwhelm you. It's going to be digestible. And I'm sure we're going to talk about the gut-brain axis. We're going to talk about autoimmunity and more cool functional medicine stuff.
Awesome. And where can people go if they want to learn more about you and your practice?
If you want to learn more about me, it's at drwillcole.com. It's just my name.com. Tons of great content on there. We have free webcam or phone health evaluations for people around the world.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dr. Cole.
Thanks for having me, guys.